On a trip to a family gathering for Thanksgiving in 2024, I purchased a 1984 Pontiac Fiero, intending to convert it to electric. Over winter break, I removed the engine and other internal combustion components of the car. I just finished pulling the radiator out. It sat in this empty area here, and I'm thinking of moving the spare tire into this space and using this whole area where the spare tire is for batteries. I actually didn't end up doing that, because then the brakes would have had to be reconfigured, and in the end I just opted for a smaller battery pack to minimize high voltage wire runs and save on the purchasing cost of the batteries. Additionally, I still need a small radiator to cool the batteries I ended up getting, so the front will remain mostly original. I've removed the alternator and the water pump, which were right in this area down here. You can see the coolant hose that had been attached to the water pump, and the other coolant hose is this piece here, and it's going under the frame where I had it for drainage purposes. I can't find any of my footage from exhaust removal, but after the engine block had been stripped, I had to turn the car around to pull out the engine. First, however, I had to remove 3 brake calipers that were seized up so the car could move freely and I could turn it around and back it into the barn. So the brakes had been frozen, and I just got finished with the front passenger's wheel, and they spin much better than they had before, or they hadn't spun at all before. So they spin freely now, and the whole point of why I'm doing this now is because this beam up here, we're going to use this to lift the engine, but as you can see, this is not the engine. So I'm going to push the car outside, flip it around, and back it in so that the engine is underneath this beam, and we'll raise the engine up around the beam, push the car out, and we can drop the engine down and have it out of the car. So I've backed the car in, and I'm going to attach the chain hoist around this beam right up over in here, and it will hang, and I'll attach to this loop here and this loop here to pull the engine out. At this point, I have tension on the engine and there are no bolts securing it anymore. However, I still had to get the clutch and flywheel out of the bell housing and the transmission, which was difficult because the engine didn't have much room to move away from the transmission where it was sitting in the engine bay. So I've paused the time lapse here to give an update. I've gotten it pretty well. It's definitely loose, as you can see here. It wiggles around. And this pin here used to be attached there, and this whole flywheel, and this here is the clutch plate, so this kind of cutout in the middle used to be the center of the transmission. And then, as you can see, it's kind of binding up a little bit here, so I have to kind of push it that way as I raise it up, which is not too hard to do. And you can see when I push it, it really moves around using the transmission for reference there. And that's not even putting my full weight into it, that's just kind of the offhand that's not holding the camera. And it is pretty slow going. It's 2, possibly 3 links at a time using these chain binders, but it's definitely going up. And once I get it high enough, I'll push the car forward, and then hopefully it'll be easier to drop it back down. For some reason, I thought that using chain binders would be much easier than waiting 2 days to borrow my friend's chain hoist. It technically came out sooner, but I spent a whole Saturday pulling and setting the engine back down, although some of that was getting it separated from the transmission. So here's the engine. It's out. I have it on an appliance cart, and I'll strap it to the appliance cart so I can move it around much easier. Watch the chains, I haven't taken off the beam yet. And if I turn on the light, you can see the engine bay without an engine. So the motor will sit obviously right in this space I'm moving the light back and forth in, and it will mount to the bell housing and this and the driven shaft there on the transmission. And then I still have to clean up all this wiring in this area. I have to kind of hose everything down. I'll probably take this outside and pressure wash it. You can see some coolant lines right there where the light is shining. Obviously this coolant line here. And this kind of rounded shape may fit the motor. I'll have to see how it fits in. And then I'll also see where I can fit batteries now that I have the engine out. So I have cardboard cutouts up here. You can kind of see the end of the cardboard with the blue tape on it sitting inside on the passenger seat. So I'll use those kind of cardboard templates of the battery to see where they can fit. As I said earlier, I ended up using fewer modules and they all sit above the motor on the passenger side of the engine bay. So I'm laying under the middle of the car and I have just taken the gas tank out today. So you can see up in here is the area where the gas tank used to be. And if I hold it here, you can see this kind of dip where it comes down. The rest of this footage is me yet again talking about the battery module issues. I imagine you can start to understand why I decided to reduce the capacity of the traction batteries. If I were to do this project again in the future, I might consider making my own custom battery modules, so they would mold to the gas tank shape and make better use of the more complex shapes that are in the engine bay.